Thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight. I'm Paris Schutz. Brandis Friedman has the evening off. Here's what we're looking at. Records show Aurora Mayor Richard Irvin's girlfriend wasn't upfront when asking for taxpayer cash.
You dusted off that bandera, that flag, and you were ready to represent your culture.
Puerto Rican Fest kicks off today. We're live from Humboldt Park. The business community announces a new public safety initiative to address gun violence in the city.
And Paris, as you mentioned, I'm in Humboldt Park as part of our Chicago Tonight in Your Neighborhood series. Now, the Puerto Rican Fest kicks off today right here in the heart of Humboldt Park. Now, this is one of the neighborhoods that's home to one of the largest Puerto Rican populations in Chicago. We'll tell you what the parade is honoring this year. But first, I send it back to you.
All right, Joanna, fun assignment today. We'll look forward to that in a second. And now to some of today's top stories. Chicago public school teachers will now be able to get up to 12 weeks of paid parental leave. Schools Chief Pedro Martinez, along with Mayor Brandon Johnson and Chicago Teachers Union President Stacey Davis Gates, announced the new policy today. It would make any CPS employee eligible for 3-month paid parental leave to care for a newborn or a new foster child. Other units of city government have also recently enacted this policy. Up until now, birthing parents were allowed up to 8 weeks of short-term disability, while non-birthing parents got only 2 weeks. Mayor Johnson lauded the new policy today.
This is the soul of Chicago. Right? Caring for those who care for us. That is who we are.
Women coming from out of state to get an abortion in Illinois will have a new layer of privacy. Illinois Secretary of State Alexei Janulius joined Planned Parenthood and other local leaders to announce a new law that would limit the use of automatic license plate readers. The devices are sometimes used by police departments to figure out the real-time location of vehicles. The Illinois legislation would prohibit them from being used to track or penalize anyone from out of state coming here to seek out abortion services.
And with this first-of-its-kind legislation, Illinois is drawing a line in the sand. We will not allow people to be targeted for visiting our state to procure legal health care.
And it's a celebration of one of the city's greatest cultural exports. The Chicago Blues Fest is officially underway. This year's festival will take place today through Sunday on 3 stages at Millennium Park and feature headliners like Wayne Baker Brooks. There you see Charlie Musselwhite. You'll also see John Primer and Los Lobos on Sunday. This is the first time since 2019 that the fest will be back in full force after it was canceled for COVID in 2020 and 2021, and it was significantly scaled down last year. And later on in the show, a big development for a museum celebrating the father of Chicago blues, Muddy Waters. Up next in the program, details into a local business group's bold plan to reduce gun violence. That's right after this.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by Alexandra and John Nichols, the Jim and Kay Mabey family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
Chicago's business community is stepping up to try and drastically reduce the city's rate of gun violence. The Civic Committee of the Commercial Club of Chicago is proposing a plan that would reduce homicides and shootings by about 80% in 10 years. That's the hope. This comes as several major companies leave the Chicago area, with some citing crime as a reason. And joining us are Derek Douglas, president of the Civic Committee, and Ernie Cato, a former Chicago police chief and senior advisor for the Civic Committee's public safety plan. Welcome both of you to Chicago Tonight. Derek, the new mayor has said to the business community, instead of picking up and leaving and complaining, why don't you put some skin in the game and do something? How deep is their commitment to this plan?
Well, the commitment to this plan runs very, very deep. The Civic Committee, we announced just last week that we want to lean in on the issue of public safety for our members as well as the people of Chicago. This is really the top issue that most people would identify needing to be addressed. But to do it, we all need to come together. And there was a recognition that the business community had not yet come to the table to join the other stakeholders that have been working on the issue. And so we spent 6 months listening, learning, meeting with everybody we could, trying to understand what's the best ways in which the business community can engage and have an impact. And that's what led to the plan that we announced last week.
And we'll get into some of the specifics of the plan in a moment, but Ernest Cato, you've been with the police department, or you had been for a long time. These are very lofty goals, 80% reduction in homicides in 10 years. Lots of superintendents have come in and said they want to do something like that, and it never really materializes. So how doable is it?
I think it's very doable. I think that once you put the mechanism of building trust into the community, taking this one table approach is really very important, where you take a holistic approach to address the issues in our community. I think once the community starts to see how we're going to play a role into this, they're going to also play a role.
All right, let's talk about the 5 pillars here that you outlined in this plan. So 1, helping take community violence intervention programs to scale, hiring alumni of those programs, criminal justice reforms, hiring more broadly from underinvested communities, investing directly in underinvested communities. Let's stick with that first one, taking violence intervention programs to scale. What exactly does that mean?
So there's a community, a group of organizations in Chicago. They're called the Community Violence Intervention Organizations. There's larger ones like Chicago CRED, Metropolitan Family Services works in this space, Heartland Alliance through the READY program, and there's smaller organizations that are doing this work. What they do is they work with the most at-risk individuals, the ones who are most likely to be shot or shoot, and they give them wraparound services. They try to get them on the employment track so they can get out of that life and get into a different life. They've been having some success. There's a program, an initiative in North Lawndale where a lot of these organizations are collaborating, but it's not at scale. And
there's some results in North Lawndale too,
yes,
correct?
They're seeing some results. The violence had been going down over the last year or so when they were working on this together, but they're only in one neighborhood.
So basically they need funding to go citywide.
They had to go, so they're working with about 20% of the population that they need to get to. So one of our first pillars was, let's see if we can work with the philanthropic community, the nonprofit community, and the CVI community to scale that up, to maybe get to 75, 80%.
All right, Ernest Cato, from the perspective of the Chicago Police Department, how essential are these groups and these wraparound services in addition to what police have to do?
Let me tell you my early career as working as an exempt member at the police department. I was a commander in the 15th district. We created a program called the Austin Response Team, which is a community response team. And it's exactly what Derek is talking about, being able to take multiple community organizations, business, clergy, whatever it may be, and work as one team to address the problem. Too often, many organizations work in silos. We have to get away from the silos, come to the table, because there's really only one goal. And that one goal is to ensure that our communities are safe. So when you say doable, I just won't use the word doable. I'm going to say that it's an effect. It will occur.
If some of these silos come down and people are working in tandem with each other. But it's going to take investment and money, and are business leaders, are companies in Chicago willing to pony up?
Yes, I mean, before we came out with the plan, we went to our civic committee membership to talk about what's going to be required, the scale of investment that's going to be needed, and we got the endorsement of the full civic committee. For those who don't know, the civic committee is made up of about 100 of the largest companies in the Chicagoland area, the CEOs of those companies. And so they recognize that we are going to be needing to put in resources to make this work, but we also wanted to approach this in a humble way. We wanted to recognize that there have been organizations working on this issue for many years, and business is coming to the table new. So part of our approach is to sit down with those organizations at the one table and understand, to scale CVI, what are the things that are needed from business to help you do that? For jobs and hiring from the CVI programs, what are the types of jobs? What are the skill sets that are there, so we can understand.
And are there commitments to hire folks from
commitments to hire
underinvested
folks.
neighborhoods?
Exactly. Absolutely.
And that's another thing the mayor has called upon. You know, hire some of these folks. Stop complaining. Hire kids, put them to work.
We completely agree.
Ernest Cato, Crane Chicago Business, criticized one aspect of this plan, saying it didn't call for a fully staffed police force. Is the force understaffed right now? Does it need to be staffed up?
Well, we know that the ranks of the police department have decreased. So the answer to your question is that the ranks have to increase. But that would definitely have to be a question that the police department will actually have to answer when we have to actually have a representative there, but we know the ranks have decreased and the ranks need to be increased.
All right,
Can I just add
Jack,
on
go
that?
for it.
So that did come out in Cranes, and we were a little disappointed to see that, because the suggestion was as if we were against adding police or increasing police, which we never said. What we said was the approach we want to take is to sit down with the leadership of CPD, sit down with the city, understand what is their strategy, what are the needs, how much do they want to grow, and get behind that. So as opposed to us dictating, you need to do X, Y, and Z, it was more of a collaborative approach to hear from the police themselves, here's what we'd like to have. We'd like to add more of this, we'd like to add more of that, and then have the business community find ways to support it. So it's just about the way you come at the issue, really.
Certainly understood. Ernest Cato, the city, as you know, is in the midst of a search for 3 finalists for the next superintendent. Your name has been very prominent in that search. How interested are you in that job?
You know, right now there's an actual process that's going on, so I think we're going to let that process play out.
Okay, fair enough. Derek Douglas, what are the next steps for this? Now, how do you put it into action?
So the next steps are, one, bringing that one table together. And we're very looking forward to working with the mayor and the new administration to think about how can we get all the various stakeholders together, organized around a common plan, with a common strategy, with transparency and accountability, to make sure that all parts of the system are being accountable. 2, we're going to start working on those individual pillars. You mentioned the 5. The first 3, CVI scaling, jobs, and the public safety infrastructure, are really about dealing with the acute problem right now. We got to get control of the violence happening now. But we also recognize if you want to have a long-term sustainable impact, you also got to think about the root causes. And so the 4th and 5th pillar are really about how do we address the underlying economic conditions in these communities, which oftentimes leads to this. So we're going to be working with the partners around the city, trying to develop implementation plans, and hopefully you'll be seeing a lot of this activity happening very soon.
Comprehensive approach, and we do hope to be talking to both of you about this going forward. Very important report. Derek Douglas, Ernest Cato, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us.
You bet. And up next, ethical questions about government grants in Aurora. So please stay with us. All right, we're going to go to Joanna Hernandez, who has got the fun assignment tonight. She is in Humboldt Park for the start of Puerto Rican Fest. Joanna, give us a preview.
And Paris, well, let me first tell you that this park gets filled with people. Now, as you said, the Puerto Rican Fest kicks off today right at the heart of Humboldt Park. Hundreds of people come here to enjoy their time. But before the festival kicked off today, we met a couple people who got the celebration started a bit early.
The Puerto Rican vibes are in full force along Division Street.
Well, it's the excitement that all our people come together, and it's unbelievable that there's more of us that fit more into that little island, and it's unbelievable how much there are out here.
Humboldt Park resident Endra Sandugar starts the celebration early with family and friends, playing some classic salsa and I couldn't resist jumping in.
Our race, I'm Puerto Rican, we've got to be proud of our race.
This year's festivities will have musical guests from Puerto Rico and social media influencers like Rebecca Nieves Huffman.
Because I was born and raised in this community and just grew up with the Puerto Rican Day Parade being a thing. Like you dusted off that bandera, that flag, and you were ready to represent your culture.
Huffman, along with 2 other social media ambassadors, will be hosting a meet and greet, a Plátano cook-off, and a fashion show.
This trip is called Paseo Boricua, is that correct?
That's right. This is El Paseo Boricua. And the 2 flags that are along Division, it really marks that space. And when you go along Paseo Boricua, there's a lot of things as far as the architecture that looks like Puerto Rico.
Humboldt Park wasn't always the vibrant community it is today. In the 50s, the neighborhood was plagued by poverty and crime.
You would have come here 50 years ago and see the slums that Puerto Ricans live, infested with roaches and rats and everything else. And to see what we have done in 50 years is an incredible achievement.
This year, the parade will honor the 50th anniversary of the Puerto Rican Culture Center, a community grassroots initiative that has grown to offer multiple programs throughout the neighborhood.
When we go down Paseo Boricua, we can see how many programs we got, from HIV programs, from case management, from mental health, the violence programs for teens, and we also are part of the CHRC program for workforce of CDPH, and that's one of the ones that I lead also.
The center was also at the forefront of the HIV/AIDS epidemic in Humboldt Park. For Jimenez, his Puerto Rican pride is expressed through his human rights activism, from advocating for the independence of the island to LGBTQ rights.
What I went through as a gay Puerto Rican man, and very political and not being accepted, to wait to in my 40s to be who I am. And I don't want kids to have to go through that agony.
For more than 10 years, the parade has hosted an LGBTQ coronation. These individuals represent the festival as the king and queen of the parade, a move Jimenez says helps dismantle the stigmas surrounding LGBTQ people and Latino culture.
And the cacica today is a trans woman, okay? And the cacique is a gay man. So nowhere in the United States does an ethnic parade do that.
Despite the gentrification facing the neighborhood, the community has fought to keep the culture thriving. Last year, the Puerto Rican flags on Division Street became city landmarks.
I want them to feel the 2 F's, familia and fun. I want them to feel that they're amongst their people. Even if you're not Puerto Rican, we want you to come out and experience the culture, the fun, the food, the música. There's going to be incredible music being played along the festival and the parade.
I clearly had too much fun with this assignment. Now, the festival is open today only to the community, but tomorrow it will be open to the public starting at 4 p.m. where people can enjoy games, live music, and of course, food. Now, the actual Puerto Rican People's Day Parade kicks off on Saturday at 2 p.m. on Division Street. Reporting live from Humboldt Park, I'm Joanna Hernandez. I send it back to you.
All right, Joanna, nice job with those dance moves, too. Who knew? The girlfriend of Aurora's mayor has gotten some big taxpayer-funded grants from the city. This after she was less than honest about whether her businesses got federal COVID aid. Last month, WTTW News reported that Laura Ayala Clark benefited from a round of grants for Aurora businesses to the tune of $10,000. But a copy of her grant application we obtained shows it wasn't all up front. Chicago Tonight's Nick Blumberg has been investigating this grant program and joins us now. So, Nick, what was the issue with this handout from the city of Aurora?
Well, Paris, that grant program that Laura Ayala Clark benefited from was meant to help small businesses still struggling with the lingering effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, part of the application asks whether the company's ever gotten COVID-related funding, local, state, or federal. The application Laura's Furniture sent in says NA on that section of the form. State records show otherwise. In fact, the furniture store previously got $10,000 from the state's Business Interruption Grant Program, which was meant to help keep small businesses afloat in 2020 and 2021, passing along federal funds. We tried to ask Ayala Clark about that misrepresentation. She didn't respond to requests for comment, And when we visited Laura's Furniture earlier this week, an employee said she wasn't there. A City of Aurora spokesperson also didn't respond to a request for comment.
And so what did the City of Aurora ask businesses that were applying for this program?
Sure, among other things, it asked them to describe the economic impact of COVID on their businesses, and it gave them the chance to include documentation to back that up. Now, we reviewed 2 other applications to this grant program. They had things like, extensive rundowns of business operations, professionally prepared profit and loss sheets, and receipts. Now, Laura's Furniture wrote just 4 sentences in its narrative saying the company had $22,000 in losses in 2021 and 2022, and it included an unsigned profit and loss sheet with the years handwritten on an otherwise typed document. Now, last month, Mayor Irvin recused himself from voting on the grant program his girlfriend benefited from. Before the vote, he praised the staff that oversees the program as professional and precise.
This speaks volumes to the folks we have on our team. Ellen Morgan vetted every applicant, and they either met the qualifications, each applicant met the qualifications, or didn't. Simple as that.
When we first reported on the grant last month, Irvin wouldn't do an interview with us, but a city spokesperson said the process was all above board and that applicants were evaluated on their merits.
And in case viewers need reminding, Irvin was a GOP candidate for governor that we reported extensively on. Remind us some of what you found with these applications.
Well, in addition to the $10,000 grant that went to Irvin's girlfriend, we also found more than $83,000 in taxpayer-funded grants that went to the Aurora Business Center. That office building is co-owned by the husband of the City of Aurora's Director of Cyber and Technology Risk, and 2 of his co-owners were also involved in a side consulting business that Irvin quietly started in 2020. Now, we tried to reach out to those 2 men at a different consulting company that they run. The person who answered the phone said that, quote, nobody is here, and that he didn't know how to get in touch with the men, and then hung up. Critics of Irvin say these kinds of deals are just all too common in Aurora. Paris.
Certainly seems that way. Nick Blumberg, thanks very much.
Thank you.
The Muddy Waters Mojo Museum gets its biggest financial boost to date. The museum honoring the father of modern blues has received a $1.1 million grant from the Mellon Foundation. Representatives with the museum say the grant will go toward restoring the basement level of the Muddy Waters house in North Kenwood. Back in 2021, arts correspondent Angel Ito visited the Future Museum and met with the family of the late Muddy Waters, who say they're grateful to be taking a step in continuing his legacy. Here's another look at how the museum plans to elevate the influence of blues in Chicago.
Yeah, when this sun rose this morning, I didn't have my baby by my side.
After years of uncertainty, transforming the home with the pink flamingos on 43rd and Lake Park has finally become a reality for the family of Muddy Waters.
I think it's our job as blues historians, but also people who love blues and who are vying for the blues legacy. It's our jobs to have people remember that the blues is the roots of a lot of music.
Born McKinley Morganfield, Muddy Waters moved to Chicago in the 1940s to pursue music full-time. His electric blues style has influenced nearly every blues and rock musician that's come after him.
We have a huge vision.
Chandra Cooper is the great-granddaughter of Muddy Waters and is overseeing the development of the new Mojo Museum. Her mother, Amelia, or Cookie, was raised by her grandfather there.
Growing up in a house with just particular musicians and all of the different races that came in, it wasn't unusual to me. You know what I'm saying? So, I can be woken up like at 1 or 2 o'clock and they were jamming out in the basement.
Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5.
Like I would say, they would come in for a gig. That's how I learned how to cook so well, Angel, because he could come in like at 1 or 2 o'clock and my Geneva would wake me up, which was his wife. And we would go in the kitchen and start making eggs, frying bacon, and they would eat. And if they felt like it, like at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, they were gone in the basement.
The museum plans to continue that tradition with a recording studio to prepare the next generation of artists.
We want to really involve the community. What that looks like is making sure that we're able to bring children and youth in there to understand what the blues is and give blues education. In addition to that, we want to work with people who are blues musicians to give them educational resources as well. One of the things that I'm really strong about and what I really like is also to empower women in the blues space as well.
The museum will also pay tribute to Joseph Morganfield, one of Waters' sons who died late last year, just when his career as a blues musician was taking off. He just released new music created during the pandemic.
It's really heartbreaking for our family because with the single that he just cut, we could see so much of the resemblance.
With a $50,000 grant from the National Trust for Historic Preservation, the Waters estate says the museum could be open in as soon as 2 years.
We have to realize that there is not any type of blues museum in the city of Chicago. So for us to pull this off would be gigantic.
For Chicago Tonight, I'm Angel Ito.
Again, that story comes to you from 2021 before renovations began on that site. There's no opening date for the museum yet, but in the meantime, you can hear another son of Muddy Waters, Mud Morganfield, play Saturday evening at the J. Pritzker Pavilion. His performance is part of the Chicago Blues Festival, as we mentioned, which kicks off today and goes until Sunday. A lot of fun at that festival. And that's our show for this Thursday night. For all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Paris Schutz. Enjoy this wonderful evening.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm that is proud to recognize its 18 attorneys selected for the 2023 Super Lawyers List.